This is part 2 of the order management series. In part 1, we built the purchase orders, order line items, and customers tables. In this part, we are going to build the packing slip line items. We're going to build an automation, and we're also going to integrate with Fillout. What Fillout is going to allow us to do is when the packing slip has been created, and let's say the shipping or delivery service, however you get the parts to whoever it's going, has arrived, you can quickly sign for it. And then that way the signature and the receiver's name gets imported into the system and assigned to that specific packing slip and the parts that are getting shipped. Welcome to our channel. My name is Zach Stevenson. I'm a business processes and no-code consultant. If you need help streamlining or automating any of your business processes, please visit our website below to book a free consult. The first table we are going to build is the packing slip line items. Essentially what it's going to look like is we're going to have the customers, and customers are linked to purchase orders. We have purchase orders, which are linked to the order line items. Rather, the order line items live within the purchase order. Basically, you do not have to complete the entire purchase order to move it to a packing slip to complete it. If there's just a few of the line items that have been completed, let's say you have 20 ordered parts and 5 of them are ready and you're shipping those, we can create the packing slip line items, and then the packing slip line items will live within the packing slip. So order line items and packing slip line items will connect. That way we can perform various calculations across each table so that we can see how many have shipped, how many are remaining to ship, and see those types of insights. What we're going to do is add a new blank table. We'll just call this packing slip items. And as we did across the other tables, I'm going to delete these default fields, and I'm going to begin adding the different fields that we will need this level. So the first thing, like I mentioned, we need to connect to the line items. So we're going to link it to another record. We're going to select the order line items, and we're going to create this field. Each packing slip line item will only link to one order line item. So we can turn this off. We can add a new field. This will be the quantity shipped, which will be a number that gets entered. We may want to look up a customer because we're going to want to move that customer over to the packing slip table once we create that. So from order line items, we will bring in the customer. And again, I'll just limit this to 1, as it will always be the same customer. We can just rename this to simplify things. We'll want to look up the item name that we're adding to the packing slip. And again, we can limit the number just to the last one item, and we'll clean up the display name. And one more field that we will look up is the purchase order or purchase order ID. So right here, and we'll limit to 1 as well. So we can clean up the display name. We'll just leave it as purchase orders. Click save, and our packing slip items is complete. We will add an item ID and use a formula field here in a moment. But first, I do want to set up the packing slip table. So we can go and create a new blank table and call it packing slip. And we can update name of the records to shipment, and we'll click save. What we've been doing all along, delete the default fields, and then begin adding the new fields on our own. First thing we're going to do, we're going to use the auto number field type so that it can uniquely identify a number to each individual record, as we'll use that within our packing slip number. So I'll just leave that blank. It will automatically assign the name of ID. And then we can create a formula field type, and we'll name this packing slip number. And this can be a formula. We'll use concatenate. We'll use the year function, and we'll insert the created time to begin. And we'll put a comma, you'll have to close out the year function and then add a comma, add in a dash, and then we'll bring in the ID. We can close this out. As you can see, it has assigned a packing slip number. Depending on your company, you might want to change it up, but this is a simple way to create a unique packing slip number that you can easily reference when the packing slip, or at least by the year the packing slip was created, and then a unique ID that will create a different ID for each individual record. We can add things like the shipping date and the status of the shipment. So we can add to ship and complete or shipped, and the default will be to ship. Your workflow might be a little bit different, so you may want to add a few different options depending on your needs. And we can add something like notes, create that as a long text field type. We'll want to bring in packing slip items, so that is a link to another record. And we'll want to allow multiple records for it to link to. We'll want to look up the customer, and we can limit to just one item shown again. And I will change the display name to just customer to simplify things. And then there's a few additional fields here that I may want to add as well. So we're going to create an integration to Fillout that will allow shipping and receiving. Again, depending on how you do this, it might vary a little bit, but to essentially create a form that will allow the shipper, receiver, whoever to sign, enter their name, and submit that they have received or delivered the shipment and the items within the packing slip. A few things that we may want to add is the receiver name. And we'll add an attachment field type, and this is where the signature will be stored. So we'll just call this receiver signature, and that needs to be an attachment, and we can create the field, and that should be good enough to get started here. And I will go through the integration in a moment. But the last thing that I do want to do is change the primary key and change it to a formula. So I'm going to keep this very simple. I'm going to just call this package slip ID. And all I am going to do is bring in the packing slip number. And we'll go back to the packing slip items. And I will change the name of this to items ID, create a formula, concatenate, and I'll bring in the packing slip that it's connected to. And I'll also bring in the order line items. Probably want to create some sort of separator in here. So I'll just add a and click save. Similar as we did in part 1 of this video is we'll delete all of the records that have been added by default. Before I develop our create a packing slip automation, I will want to go into our order line items table. There was a field or two that we added and we need to update to a formula or a roll up. And now that we have the packing slip tables created, we can leave the number ready. That is fine as is. Again, all that one is going to do when you have a specific number of the quantity ordered completed, you'll add it in there, and that will help with the automation that we will build momentarily. What I want to do from here is add a new field that is going to be a roll-up field. And we're going to look at the packing slip items, and we're going to look at the quantity shipped, and we'll leave that as a sum. That's fine. And we'll just label this as quantity shipped, click create, and it will do the calculation for us looking at the packing slip items table, and it will look at the quantity shipped number that we've entered and associated. Now that we have that entered, one other thing that we could add is the quantity remaining. I'll go in, do quantity remaining so that we know how many that we have shipped compared to how many were ordered. So we know how many left to create, build, pack, whatever your company does. We'll add quantity remaining. It'll be a formula field. We'll do the quantity ordered and we'll subtract the quantity shipped. We can see here that the quantity remaining is 10 because we have not yet shipped any of the items. And then we'll move over to the purchase orders table, and I'll go across to the remaining to ship. let's say there was 10 different items that had any number of quantity for each line item. We're going to roll all those up so that we can see kind of at a high level for the entire purchase order, how many items have not yet been shipped based off of the total order. I'll go into here and I'll change this to a roll up on the order line items. And this will be from the quantity remaining formula field that we just created. So we can see that there's 10 remaining. There's only one line item in this instance. For the sake of developing the formula and so we can see how it works, we'll go back into order line items. We're going to add one more line item to this order. So we'll select that. You can just make it whatever you want or give it any number or any type of characters you want. I'll just add 5 and the unit price will be 150 and close that out and we should be good to go. So now we have a total of 15 ordered. And on the purchase orders, we can see the price or the amount increased and the remaining to ship increased as well. So you can navigate into automations. We're going to build the automation one way, but in the part 3, when we develop the interface, we're going to change it so that the automation actually occurs on a button press. So that will be our trigger. But for the time being, I will set it up in a little different way. This is what the automations looks like. There is a couple other things that we need to set up first. So I will just add a new field and I will just bring in a single select field type and we'll just call this trigger because we will not need this once we get the interface developed. So it's going to be a single select and we'll just do create action slip. So that will be our trigger. We'll be able to go in here and select create packet slip and it will fire the automation. Basically what it's going to do is look at how many of your order line items associated to that purchase order are ready and it's going to create the packet slip for you. To build the automation, there is one other thing that we need to do and that is we'll add a new field and it's simply going to be the lookup field. And we're going to look up from purchase orders, the record ID. And again, we'll just limit that to 1 record. So as you can see, these have the exact same record IDs, and that's because that is the record ID that is linked here. Now we'll navigate to the automations. We'll do add trigger. We'll do when a record matches conditions. Once we build the interface, we'll go down here and we'll select the when a button is clicked. But for the time being, click this one. We'll select purchase orders table. We're going to select the trigger. And when the trigger is create packings. So if I click choose record, we can see there is no record that exists or that has been found at this point in time. That's because if I go back to purchase orders, you can see the trigger is blank. So I'll select create packing slip, go back to automations, select choose record, and you can see that has found that purchase order. The next step that we want to do is find records. So we want to look in the order line items table and we will select based off of a condition and where the record ID from purchase orders. So this is where the purchase order ID is. And we need to select a dynamic setting and we'll go from where the record matches a condition. So this is when we are creating the trigger. So this is from the purchase order. We're going to select this Airtable record ID. And if I click test action, there should be 2 records that populate, which there is. And now from here, what we want to do is add these records that have been found and look at the number ready field and create them in the package slip. But first, there is one other condition that we do want to add. And so we're going to just click add condition. We're going to select the number ready, and we're going to do where the number ready is greater than 0. So now that when we test the action, because I have not added any number ready here, the number ready is technically 0 for both items. So I'm going to test this and it should not display any items, which it does not. So now we'll go back to the data. we'll select the number of ready. So quantity remaining shows 10. Let's say 5 of them are ready here, and quantity remaining is 5. And let's say all of them are being completed there. So we'll enter that amount, go back to automations, and we'll test this find records one more time. And as found both of them, we can create a record. So we're going to create the packing slip. We'll go to the packing slip table, and then we'll bring in something like the status is to ship. Although we have selected the status to automatically default to ship, there's nothing else that I need to move across to one of these fields. So I do need to add something. If I remove that field that says this input is required, so every time it's going to be to ship anyway. So we'll go ahead and create that record so that we can use it in subsequent steps here. So we'll click Add Advanced Logic. We're going to click this repeating group. This repeating group is going to go through each found record here. We'll select the input list. We'll click Find Records, which is the order line items that have been found. We'll use that as our list, and then we'll click Add Action. We're going to create a new record for each of these line items, and we're going to create it in the packing slip items. And we need to move something like the quantity shipped. We can change that dynamically, and we want to just be the number ready from the found record here. Then we'll choose another field, and we'll want to go down and select packing slip. So that's the packing slip that we've created here. So we can scroll down on the left side here, use a source, which is create record and packing slips, and we'll just enter in the Airtable record ID. And the last thing we want to link is the line item. So that's going to be from the repeating group, and we're just going to add the Airtable record ID. The last action, we will update a record in order line items, and it's just going to be the current item record ID, and we're going to choose the number ready, and we're just going to leave that blank because once this automation has run and it's being processed, we want to change the number ready back to 0 and essentially just leave it empty so that we know that after the automation has been run, the packing slip's been created, and the calculation occurs to show us that the number of remaining items based off of what has just been shipped. We'll rename it to create packing slip. We'll turn it on in a moment, and we can test the automation. I just want to clear it, and we can turn this on now. Navigate back to here. We can see that we have the number ready as 5 on each of these. We can go back to the purchase order and turn on the trigger, which is create packing slip. So it's going to run. There's one other thing that we probably should have added in the automation, but because we are going to add it based off of a button trigger in the interfaces in a part 3, I did not add that. But what you could do is add an update record based off of the found record here, which is a purchase order, and just clear the trigger. But as you can see, I'll go over to order line items, and it will show here that the number ready has been cleared. It shows now quantity shipped is 5, and the quantity remaining is 0 on this one and 5 on this one. We'll go over to the packing slip items. We can see that's been created here, and the packing slip has also been created and is ready to be shipped. And the last part of this is creating the integration with Fillout to be able to receive some form of signature. So if you do not have a Fillout account already, again, look in the description below. There will be a link to get started. And once you have an account, go to Fillout and we'll create a new form. Select connect, select Airtable form, and you can pick any theme you want. I'll just hit next. You will have to choose an account. So you'll have to connect a new account if you have not done so already. It's pretty straightforward, but you'll just go through, you'll select the workspace or the base that you want to allow or authenticate the integration with, and then you can carry on. So I'll just hit next because that works for me. And I will click or type in and search for the order management system. And that, make sure I got the right one. And I want to select the packing slip. I'll create this form. We can name it signed packing slip. And the first thing that I want to do is go into the integrations here, select the connection that we made, and I want it to just update the record. Because what we are going to do is add a button to the packing slip so that when it's clicked, it will open up the receiver name, receiver signature field, and the shipping field so that we can make changes there. We'll click update record. We'll select this button, which is copying this formula, and we can click update. We can go back into our order management system, right click and insert a new formula field. So we'll just paste that formula that it gave us, and we will rename this to signed packing slip link. Then we can insert a new field again. We'll just call this sign button. Create the button field type. You can label it whatever you want. Select your color. The action is going to be open URL, and the URL formula is just going to be the signed packing slip link that we just created. And when I create this field, a button will populate for us. We'll go back into Fillout. We'll go to the edit screen. We'll refresh all the fields that we're looking for here. And then we'll scroll down and select things like shipping date, the receiver name, and the receiver signature. We'll leave blank for now. We'll go over to the other. We'll search for signature because we want to actually bring in the signature field type. For this one, the signature field type will have to go up here and connect it to the receiver signature, which is an attachment field back in Airtable. You can see that it's automatically connected it for us to the shipping date and the receiver name. So that's good enough there to get started. You can do things like make this required. So I'll make the receiver name and shipping date required. And the last thing I might want to do is bring in this paragraph field, and we're going to bring in the packing slip number. So all I did there is add the @ symbol. We'll click the updating record, and we'll add the packing slip number here. So from here, I'll click publish because it's ready to go. We can go over to ending, turn off the confetti, and we'll just say that the signature has been received. So you can have this redirect or go to a new form, but in this case, we'll just display signature complete or signature received, and we can publish this form again. We'll go back into the order management system. Now we have a packing slip created with a couple of line items in it. I'll go into sign here, and it will ask for the shipping date. We can just select today, receiver name, and we can add a signature. We'll display signature complete, and we can navigate back into the packing slip. Just expand this record. So there's the line items there. And we can see that the receiver name has been added, the signature has been added, and the ship date has been added. That's it for part 2 of the order management series. Part 3 is going to be developing the interface so that it makes it much simpler and easier to display the information that is relevant to us and will be much more user-friendly for other employees within your organization. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get notified for part 3 when it is released.